welcome to Lead Line, reminding you of your personal genius and how you think in order to actualize what you desire.
Well, welcome, everyone, back to Lead Live. We're here every Wednesday, noon hour, Pacific Standard Time, and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I am once a month so honored to be able to welcome back and a remarkable man, and I am honored and humbled to say colleague, Dr. Martin Kwende. And the spirit of his family is with him always. The spirit of his colleagues are with him. And most importantly, the spirit of the Great Spirit inspires and keeps both of us grounded, able to provide you with not only inspiration, hopefully, at least some tools that you're able to walk away with every time you get to hear us. Hello, Dr. Quinde.
Hi, Dr. Webb. Good morning or good afternoon. How are you?
I am so fortunate. I am very fortunate. And you, how are you?
I'm feeling great. I'm excited to be here again on the show. Thank you so much for hosting. I'm always looking forward to this. So hopefully we get to share our perspectives and that can help, someone impact their lives in a positive way.
Absolutely. In fact, um, we have a lot to share. And today's topic is owning your perspective and make your own decisions. And in talking with you, Dr. Quinde, you were just giving me some soccer punch, almost like reality checks recently, and that led to this topic today. Can you begin with that? Share with us some things that we need to keep in mind and help us understand why this topic of owning your perspective, making your own decisions.
Yeah, I frankly, when we chatted, I kind of really love the concept of owning your perspective, right? Because in life, we all want certain outcomes, right? We come to this and we want to make an impact, we want to make a difference. However, we need to develop a perspective. So everybody has some perspective, how they perceive what's going on, right? And that perspective impacts how you see the world. For some of us, we feel like, the world is happening to us rather than us being able to impact the world. And that's actually based on how we perceive what's going on, right? And I was just thinking, whether it's in the financial field, in the medical field, or in our personal lives, our perspective is key to how we interact with the world. And I was just thinking, most of us almost play a victim mentality, where we're always feeling like the world is happening to us. But when you can understand that when you have the right information, you can actually control how you interact with the world. That changes everything. And the crazy part is that the system, however you want to call it, is set up for the people that know to take advantage of it and for people that don't know to be taken advantage of. So having a clear perspective,
Can you
having
say that again? I think people need to hear that. Can you restate what you just said? The system is set up. Can you
yes.
restate that?
So I said the system is set up to take advantage of people that don't know, but people that do understand the system should be able to take advantage of it.
You got it.
Right.
You
So
got it.
the perspective that someone understands the world impacts how you respond to it. Right. And so I'm just saying owning your perspective for me is a big deal because that perspective would totally shape your life. But you have to know what you need to know that you have control rather than being controlled. Right. So that's kind of really the essence of what we're talking about today.
And so perspective is really how people see the world and approach the world. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly correct. Okay. Because
Mhm.
your perspective gives you some way of interpreting what you see. Right.
And the approach is really, it reminds me of so much of what we know about the subconscious mind, the emotional mind. We are driven almost 100%, not 100%, but at least 90 to 99% our daily lives by the subconscious mind, the emotional mind. So our perspective is wired, and we can change that perspective using our mental faculties, like imagination, like intuition. So we can shift it. And that's what we're talking about today. Just because we have a perspective does not mean that it works for us or it's the most healthy one or that we will have it tomorrow. We can shift that, we can change it, right?
Yes, absolutely. So your perspective influences your interpretation, and your interpretation impacts your belief that you have, right? And your beliefs basically impact, your habits, and your habits impact your story, the story you tell yourself every day, which in a way creates an identity for you, right? One of the things we say, like in the financial space, is that you cannot out earn your identity, which means you have to change your identity when you get up on every given day. What kind of story are you telling yourself, right? If you say, hey, my job, I don't like the job, they don't pay me well, I don't like the hours that I work. Hey, you have the opportunity to change that if you wanted to, right? But you have to change your story, and then it goes backwards the other way. And then the subconscious obviously is very powerful because there are things you do without even thinking about them, right? But that's a combination of things that you've done to inform your subconscious. People you hang around with, the environment that you're in kind of impacts your life in a way that you don't even know. But once you get aware, you can create the thinking that your subconscious believes. For example, we ask people to read out their goals, right? Rather than just listen to it. Like, you have to read it out. You have to speak out your affirmations. Because if you inform your subconscious consistently in a particular way, guess what? It starts to respond to that.
Yes. And that's the power, is choosing, being conscious of a choice, writing it down, verbalize it. Even if you don't believe, you start with the clarity of what it is that you want to achieve. And then you make it real in terms of a goal. Then you make it real in terms of a plan. And then you just go through this new habit of doing things that are progressing towards that end that you want to achieve. And before you know it, your heart, your whole feelings synergistic with that greater vision that you want to actualize, that those goals you want to experience, you're emotionally connected to it, and you're just wired and you're firing in all senses. And you wake up one day and you've actualized it all. And you go into a folder, or you have your child look at something and says, "Hey mom, hey dad, what is this? This looks like a picture of our house." And then you realize, oh my God, I put it all, I created a visual of the house that I wanted 10 years ago, and we're now in it. I created the family that I wanted in writing, and you're able to share that with your child and say, "That's what I had in my mind, and I had forgotten it, but I was so in the habit of doing it, it just manifested." Let me tell you, folks, both Dr. Kwende and I are living that. That is the reality of our lives. So if we keep something in our mind that is limiting, that harms us, that's negative, that harms other people, guess what? We recreate that every single day. We put something in our mind that is visionary, that is awesome, that is powerful, maybe even scary, and we make progress towards it. All of a sudden, we shift, and before we know it, we've manifested it. Yes, there's a lot of work that's required. Yes, there's going to be painful struggle in the process. But the power, when you tell your story or have told your story, Dr. Kwende, and I'm sure if your wife did the same, so many people viewing this did the same, we just would be humbled, be sitting in like, oh my God, and you've achieved what? You and your wife achieved what? You got here from Africa and you were an executive in Silicon Valley. You earned your MBA, your PhD, and you did what? And you left all that, had almost no money coming in, and you took on this new industry, and you're making what? You'll be probably around 2 million this end of this year. I hope you don't mind me being so forthcoming. And I mean, but let me just tell the folks, you had a vision. If you and your wife didn't make some major shifts, you'd be where you were, which was quite comfortable. You were doing quite well, thank you very much. You had a vision that was grander than that. That's grander than where you're at. And that's what I want people to really reflect on and remember, right? That's what you want people to take advantage of and act on, right?
Absolutely true. So essentially, there are three steps to getting anything accomplished, three basic steps. Number one is you have to think about it first. Whatever it is you want to achieve, the first step is to think about it, right? The challenge for most people with that step is what they try to figure out how rather than just think about it. So the first step, just think about it. Don't worry about the how. Just think
Mhm.
about it. Then number two, you have to write it down,
Mhm.
right? Then you go
Make
make
it
it happen.
real.
Three steps. You think about it, you write it down, then you go make it happen. You have a strategy, you go make
Mhm.
it happen.
Mhm.
Those are the three steps to doing anything, to making anything happen.
Mhm.
Most of us get stuck in the thinking phase, right? That's why the perspective becomes very important, because your
Mhm.
perspective limits your thinking. If you ask me, right? Most people worry, how would I get this done? When I saw the business opportunity that we have, the World Financial Group opportunity, for me, it took me a while to understand it. It took me like 4 years to get it. But once I did, I made a decision knowing that I had a coach and a mentor that if I just focus on this opportunity and did everything I was supposed to do, I was guaranteed to get a positive outcome. But I also understood that there was a process to it, right? That was going to take some time and I was going to have to go through some challenges because everything has challenges anyway. But I wasn't so much concerned about how it was truly going to work. I just knew that if I made the commitment, to make a decision, and I do the work, the outcome was going to happen. So in essence, we left, my wife's a registered nurse with a master's in nursing, right? I was, working in medical devices in Silicon Valley, like you said, and we basically left, a comfortable income lifestyle of about 400 to 500,000 a year to go start in the business that I was only making 40,000. I know it sounds kind of crazy because it was crazy, but I was looking at the bigger picture of the
Mhm.
impact that that action could have on my entire community. Because I understood that working with all the education that I did, I basically was limited in the impact that I could have. I had a good life, but I didn't feel like God put me on this earth just to have a good life. I needed to make a difference, make an impact. So I was willing to basically leave the comfort that I have, live the good life for a great life. And to be honest, frankly, right now, uh, the truth is that my life is significantly different, not because of the income that I make, because of the life that will be impacted. And I strongly believe that if I didn't take that step to really think about what was going on, write it down, I had a clear plan about what I wanted to accomplish, and then go take some action, nothing would happen. And the truth is, the perspective that we have to life changes all of that. And that's kind of why, this idea of the perspective is
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'm getting chills as you talk because I know what you and your wife have done, are doing that is transformative and saving lives, in addition to enhancing the quality of many countless lives. And that's the nature of what we're doing. And yet one doesn't have to do that. One could say, I'm not there yet. I don't know that I'll ever be there. Right now, I'm just trying to survive. I'm just trying to make things happen. And I believe the man has got his neck, his foot on my neck. And literally and metaphorically, we know that has happened and is happening to a lot of people. Let's be real,
that
right?
is
That's part of
yeah,
what you said. If you don't know what you don't know, you're at the whims of whatever, whether it's a system, whether it's an individual, whether it's an organization. The power is in knowing. When you know that you can have your own perspective. You have a right to. You have a right to have your own values. Yes, we tend to take on the values of those who reared us. And if they're the right values of respect, appreciation, honoring, collaboration, and all these other things, integrity, that's great. But if they're counter to what we believe is healthy, then we get to change those values. In the same way, if the perspective keeps you stuck, we talked about in a previous broadcast this notion of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Growth mindset says failure is an opportunity. A fixed mindset, that's the limit of my abilities. I can't do any better because all these things are happening to me. Well, when you understand that you can shift like that in an instant to a growth mindset set, or you can take time to do that, that ultimately you can leverage. what we're talking about to get to that more profound state. So Dr. Kwende shared his story, uh, and I can share my story, but I want to share someone else's story, and that is Tom Hopkins, a professional that both Dr. Kwende and I leveraged because of his expertise. He said that, we have a tendency as humans to want to have 2020 hindsight. And the reality is that we grow by making mistakes, learning from them, picking ourselves up and carrying on. And then he talks about his own experience. He took literally several times to pass the state real estate exam. He took, he failed many times. And then he only made one sale in his first 6 months of being in the real estate business. Fast forward, he kept working. Someone told him about the power of professional development, leveraging, others' resources to develop the self when he only had $150 to account for. In the last year of his working in real estate as a leader, he sold 365 properties. Now, if he stopped with that first, what do you call it? If he stopped with that first exam and said, forget it. The second, forget it. Third, forget it. He would have not moved past that to be able to be on the receiving end of getting feedback. When he only had $150, he could have said, forget about this is not working. I got to go in another industry. Dr. Kwende had even more than that, and he felt something lacking. So when you have a vision and a goal in mind, you can fight through all kinds of internal challenges, right, Dr. Kwende?
Absolutely. And even before I address the vision part, what I was thinking was most people don't do stuff for two main reasons. Okay. One is roadblocks and one is storms. Those are two main things that most people don't like to deal with, right? Roadblocks in your life and storms. Now, when we talk about perspective, this is my perspective about roadblocks and storms.
Yes.
I look at roadblocks as a redirection of my path, right? And I look at storms as opening my path. So for me, when those two things happen, guess what? I'm guaranteed to win because that's the perspective that I have about roadblocks and stuff. And people, if you have the wrong perception about it, you're going to respond differently, right? Some people just shy away, they stop. Like Tom Hopkins saying, you make one sale in 6 months, guess what? Most people stop, like this is not working. But there's something very powerful about, the law of sowing and reaping, right? And the law of sowing and reaping says what? If you sow, you're guaranteed to reap.
That's right.
Whatever you sow, you're going to reap more of it, right? And there's a time for sowing and there's a time for reaping. The point is most of us want to reap when we're just sowing. That's not the season for that. So part of understanding that, and this is the key to the perspective, when you understand what you need to know, you understand the laws of nature, and you apply those laws, it changes your perspective significantly. That's why reading books, getting more informed makes all the difference because it informs you about what is really, really happening. There's no way you can get an outcome you didn't put. You cannot go harvest something you didn't plant. That's kind of the key for me, understanding, reading books, getting the right knowledge about the system. That helps you inform you about how you should inform your perspective.
Yeah.
That's key. Yeah.
And having, as you said, having the right mentor. You and I are blessed, you beginning with this blessing, to have a gentleman by the name of Eric Olson. I think it's important for us to, when we have a great mentor, just put it out there, right?
Absolutely.
A humble gentleman. And the remarkable thing is this gentleman chose to leverage his intuition, chose to leverage his own passion, his goal, what he wanted to pursue, and he achieved it. He achieved it before he was 25. And then because he achieved it, he had to create something else. And then he achieved that. And then he achieved the next one. And now he's 39 years old. He's well in excess of achieving what some of us hope to achieve by the time we are 90, 100, if we live that long. He's far exceeded that. And yet he's chosen to use the rest of his life to invest in you, I, and other people. But the power of us leveraging him is the story we really want you to hear, all viewing, listening. And that is, When you know you have a vision, Dr. Kwende was at the nail on the head. Be less concerned about how. In fact, if you know the how, you've got the wrong vision. Okay? You want something, you want to experience any aspect of your greatness, come up with a remarkable vision where you don't know the how. And then be open to universe itself, because the how will manifest. The how manifested for me, I'll personalize it throughout my life as that little foster girl who didn't even know where she was going to be the next month in a very painful, distressing situation where I was being harmed. And then overnight, I just said, I'm going to be in a different place. I didn't know what that meant. And then I was moved. And then I was going to age out of foster care. I said, I've got to figure out this. I've got to have housing. And then I heard someone say, you go to college, there's housing, there's dorms. I had a solution. I didn't know that it would lead me to ultimately go ahead and move towards 2 PhD programs at one of the most prestigious institution on the planet, UC Berkeley. Uh, and yet I made a decision and the universe mobilized to help me figure that out. Now, it didn't happen overnight. There was struggle throughout it. And yet I learned very early, before I was even 19, that struggle was a precondition to my catapulting to where I needed to be. So, like Dr. Kwende, if you understand that when you have a challenge, it's the universe giving you an opportunity to grow, to go to the next level. When you are comfortable, you stay at the level. And there's nothing wrong staying where you're at. But there's something powerful and beautiful going forward, because you get to experience what life is about more completely. Why are we here, really? We're spirits in these temples. Hopefully, we treat them as temples. And we're here for a spell. Why not leverage it all? Break all the constraints and go for it, right? Leverage people who've already done it. Go ahead, Dr.
You
Quinde.
know, that's very powerful. I just want to kind of, recognize our business mentor, Eric Olson, right? Because he basically changed my life for real. And I can't thank him enough for sending me a big dream. And he's delivered on that dream multiple times, right? And the question I ask most people is very simple. If you want to go somewhere you've never been before, would you rather go there by yourself or have someone that has been there hold your hand? I mean, the answer is very obvious, right? I wanted a better life. I wanted a greater life, a more impactful life, but I didn't have someone that had been there helping me, right? So when I met Eric Olson, right, he showed me what was possible. He showed me where he was. When I met him, he was only making about 80,000 a month. I mean, I say only because of what he makes right now, but it's not about the income. I was like, man, how do you make $80,000 a month? Makes sense. But by knowing him and understanding, that's a man of faith. He's very dedicated to his family and he's dedicated to helping others. And he told me, I'm committed to helping you if you commit to working with me. And I'm like, okay. So 4 years after I met him, I quit everything. I made my wife quit everything. And I said, I need some mentorship.
And let's be very clear, your wife was a successful nurse and she
Yeah,
loved what she was doing. And she was
exactly.
making good money. So that was not the issue. Go
No,
ahead.
exactly. So I actually made my wife give up what she loved to do, which is nursing, helping people, so that as a family we can create a different dream, a different lifestyle. She willfully gave up her career that she loved, and I really appreciate her for that. But Eric basically showed me I call him my mentor because he showed me what was possible, right? And then he put me in touch with a daily coach, Mr. Zach Rans, that on a daily basis guided me about what I needed to do. Because those two people are key. You need to have a mentor that shows you the bigger vision, and you need to have a coach that directs you on a daily basis if you want to go somewhere you've never been before. I'm very fortunate to have those two individuals in my life. They're still in my life right now, and I see them being in my life for the rest of my life. Makes sense. So I want to be that for someone as well, right? I want to be able to create somebody's future, create a dream for them, and deliver on it. Why? Because I've had someone do it for me.
And
Right.
you're doing that. Let's be very clear for those who don't know you, don't know what you're about. That's the nature of what we've chosen to do with our lives. And it's powerful. It's powerful.
Right. Eric actually took me to the home of one of the co-founders of our company. Right. His name is Monty Home. Right. He's a multi-millionaire. But when I went to his ranch, I kind of I looked at the whole company. I'm like, our global company has no presence in the continent that I lived in. And I was like,
Continent of Africa.
right.
Mhm.
And I was kind of curious. I'm like 1.3 billion people and no presence of a global company in that continent. I told myself, I want to take that company to that continent. And this company had been around really for 175 years. That has to be the craziest thought to think like, how do I take this global company that has been around for all these years to a new continent? So I brought that up, by the way, and I wasn't worrying about the how. I just said, hey, this is what I want to do. And thankfully, Monty Holmes said to Eric, I need you to put this on your agenda. I need to put this on your schedule. I like what this young man is saying right here. Actually, I wasn't that young, but that's what he said, right? So I feel so privileged and blessed that Eric first took me to his mentor to show me a bigger vision of what is possible. And that mentor was willing to listen to me and to tell me that what I was thinking was possible. Right. And that's why we're here today. And I look at, the impact that we've had on the community right now. We have a business that in the last 12 months, the company has paid out in commissions over $17 million. That's a reflection of the families that we've impacted so far. Right. And when I talk about that vision, it almost gives me goosebumps because I'm starting to truly see it happen. But my point was the perspective I had wasn't about me knowing how to get it done. It was about just believing it and then working the process. Right. And our vision is very simple. And it's global. It has nothing to do with me particularly at all. But the first thing is that what most people accept the system the way it is. So you have a bank account, the bank takes your money, they make money, but they don't give it to you. And when I ask people, why do you do that? They say, that's the system. Okay. That's their perception and understanding of the system, but that's not how the system works. The system only works like that for people that don't know the system. But for people that do, it doesn't work that way. That's what we teach in our business, how to leverage the system. If we did that, so Dr. Webb, you're doing that with your money, I do the same thing. Everyone that's listening doing the same thing. Guess what? We can add trillions of dollars to our community just by what shifting our money because we understand the system.
Restate that. Restate that. I want people to hear that again. We can add
trillions of dollars to our community just by shifting where we put our money because we understand the system better.
Folks, this is no joke. This is literal. This is what we're talking about is codified in IRS codes. What we're talking about are instruments that the wealthy use, that banks use, that corporations use, that those in the know use, who are not wealthy, who are not banks, who are not corporations. And not enough of us know about basic things that allow for you to create financial freedom during your lifetime and ensure intergenerational wealth. That's we can talk about the technical stuffs until we're whatever color. But that's not the bottom line. We want you to understand that you can go beyond where you're at. In fact, it's to your advantage while you're alive, where you have the capacity to leverage tools that allows you to create the reality that you want to create now. Not hope that a grandchild or a great grandchild or someone else's grandchild is going to experience it. Create it. Now, Olive is on, and we love Olive. She writes, very true vision and goals will keep you going. And understanding the law of attraction is key. She's so on point because that's what we just talked about. We talked about the law of attraction. We talked about a lot of universal laws, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law of compensation. You give in a way that's unconditional, that's of value. You get back, it's like a boomerang. You throw it out and it comes back with greater force, greater intensity. You give, you give in a way that is additive, that aids, that helps, you will get back. And the law of attraction is whatever your mind thinks, you're attracting it, you're creating it. And really, it's because the mind is connected to the heart, vibrating, the whole essence of your being is vibrating out and sending signals. And, sometimes we meet other people, Dr. Kwende, and say, I think I've met you before. Well, we may not have met personally, but we've met the same vibration. We've experienced each other wherever we've been on the planet. And sure enough, used to be 6 degrees of separation. Now it's 4, and it could be less degrees of separation. We're experiencing each other. We need each other. We can benefit from the intelligence and the lovely heartfelt connection of one another. That we have to understand that we're always attracting who we are, what we think, what we feel. We're always creating what we're vibrating out there to the universe.
And
That's it.
talking about the law of attraction, I love the way Eric Olson talks about it. Okay, so every law has in a way an action and then a reaction. Does that make sense? More or less.
Yes.
The law of action only works if you do the last 6 letters of attraction. You have to take some
Yep.
action, right?
Yep.
There's no law of attraction without action. Makes sense. So that's
Mhm.
powerful. I mean, you can't get the outcome without doing something. And this is part of the challenge of what making a decision, right?
Mhm.
And the problem is that your perspective impacts when or how you make a decision about what to do or not to do,
Mhm.
right? I know we talk about, you have to be consistent to win, but guess what? Every one of us is where we are right now because we've been consistently doing what we've been doing. So the issue is not just consistency, okay? Because we've been consistently doing what we're doing. That's how we are where we are, every one of us. But guess what? You have to consistently do the right thing.
The right thing. You got
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Very, very important. You
Got
can't
it.
just be consistent. Every one of us is consistent
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
things that we do. That's how we are where we are right now.
Mhm.
If you want to get
Mhm.
to the level you want to get to, you have to consistently do the right things to get you there.
Mhm. Point. You're so on point. So you've already answered this, and I'm going to ask this of us. And maybe others who are viewing who can type in their responses can share their responses too. If they're on YouTube or Facebook, if you're on LinkedIn, you may not be able to do it. I'm not certain, but certainly uh, if you're on Roku TV or Amazon TV, you get the power of viewing, but not being able to type it. So if you have comments or questions or even recommendations or statements, please just put them in there in the chat. And so, and we'll reference them. Why is making a decision important?
That's a great question. Nothing happens until a decision is made in life,
Obvious.
right?
Mhm,
Everything happens only because someone decided.
mhm, mhm.
And not deciding is also a decision. If you choose to not do something, that's still a decision. So my point is, at every point we get to decide whether we like it or not. Now you can decide unconsciously or you decide consciously. Either way, you get to make a decision every time you interact with something, right? So we on this call right now, we talking to you right now. We decided to make this program to share our perspective,
Mhm,
right? And how having the right perspective will impact your life, right? But this is something that we do intentionally, and we have to prep for it and make it happen, right? Dr. Webb has this program, so we get together on it and share our perspectives about how we think it might help you. But that's a decision we get to make. So, question: what decisions have you made to be where you are right now? Every one of us, right? They say the where you are in life today is based on the decisions you made in your past. But with the same token, the decisions you make today can impact the next 3 or 4 generations of your family. So as you listen
Word.
right now, I'm not sure what you're hearing, but you have the power to change your life today, your kids, your grandkids, great grandkids, the next 3 or 4 generations by the decisions you make today.
You're so on point. You're so, and I got chills literally. Just hearing that, articulating in the simplest form the impact that each one of us to talk in the present is we're making now. We create the reality of in the next moment, of tomorrow, of the next few years, of the next generation. We can shift as much as we want, or we can go completely to a brand new paradigm. We get to do what's necessary to create healthier, valued circumstances in the next moment, the next moment, and the subsequent moment. And the other thing to remember is that we only have this moment. We don't have tomorrow. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. So the power in using every moment we have in the way that adds value is about the health and well-being of life itself. All of a sudden, we shift things in a direction that is really in service to life itself. So the intent is not just to be esoteric for esoteric purposes. Want really people to understand are the fact that, as you beautifully conveyed it, Dr. Kwende, we're making decisions all the time. And I say that in different contexts and have said it for many years. Really doesn't matter where you're consciously making a decision, that whatever action you take is a reflection of a decision that you've made. Even if the action is such that you believe someone else requires it, it's their perspective. You've not owned your own. Figure out your perspective. Do what you need to do. And if it just means being quiet and self-reflective, that's powerful. We all should be self-reflective every single day. Get out of our head, write it down, what you're feeling, what you've done, what you want to do, how it relates to where you want to end up in a year, in 5 years, at the end of your life. What do you want to be able to look back and say you've experienced, accomplished, contributed?
Absolutely true. And this is actually the topic of today, which is what own your perspective. The truth is that for most of us in society, right? I mean, our political views are based on someone else's view. Our financial views are based on someone else's view. Our work life is based on somebody's idea of a business, right? So we don't own our perspective. We almost kind of playing victim all the time because all this is how the system is. Or they're not paying me enough. I don't like where I work. I don't like where I live. We have the power to change all of that. That's the essence of what we're talking about, owning your own perspective. You can create the reality that you want because you have the power to do that. However, if you don't know it, then you're going to be a victim of the system. And I'm hoping that for me, I have always wanted to create influence rather than be influenced. One of the things that I think I did very well growing up was not to be influenced by my friends at all. If I said I want to do something, that's exactly what I did. If they said, hey, you're a chicken, let's go do something wrong, I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. They say you're a chicken, I said, yes, I'm a chicken, I'm still not doing it. Because you have to, I mean, as a young person, I teach my kids that right now. I'm like, hey, you are with your friends, don't go do something that you know is not good for you just because your friends are doing it. And I ask my kids all the time, are you a follower or a leader? I ask all of my kids. They're like, hey, daddy, I'm a leader. I'm like, great. So guess what? You don't get to follow no one. They follow you. That's how I try to live life. I'm hoping that if you understand that you have the power to do that, that can change the life you create for yourself right now. And that impacts the trajectory of your kids' life for maybe 3 or 4 generations right now, just by you understanding that you have power to create the future that you want. And it's not going to happen overnight. That's the point, because there's a season for planting and for harvesting, but you have to be self-aware so you can start making the little changes that are necessary.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I was 7, I remember being 7, and I remember having to make a difficult decision in order to literally save my life. And I made that decision. And I remember when I was 12, and I made a proclamation. And I don't even know where it came from. It was someplace deep within me, and it just came out in a church environment. And it was like, my body just was erected. Was sitting in the choir, and there was time for testimonials, and my body shot up. I had no idea. I'm an introvert. Last thing I do is talk, right? Got up and fast forward, I'm talking, but got up and I proclaimed that I was going to tell everybody that the the Great Spirit God exists, that Jesus Christ exists, that, and I said other things that were just it just shook me at my core. It's like, what am I doing? And it just came out my mouth. And I sat back down completely embarrassed. If I was white, I'd be rich red, right? But I'm this beautiful brown color, whatever color I am. And I just was in fright. What did I do? And when I was 19, I was in college and I had an epiphany. One of my foster mothers who used to basically say, "Don't do what everybody else does," and she was remarkably powerful in her giving and remarkably powerful in the pain that she dished out. So she was complex, folks. It wasn't this dualistic. She was all great. She was all bad. But I remember her coming to me, and I had another epiphany about my capacity that exceeded what other people perceived of me. And then, and I fought to struggle through whatever I was going through to be successful in college and get out because I didn't want to lose housing. It never occurred to me that I didn't need dormitories anymore, but I'm glad I didn't know that. So I stayed there, persisted, completed. The power is in deciding something and persisting with the right information and completing so that the empowerment comes from your success, not from other people telling, I empower you because I am so and so and I give you greatness. No, you did the heavy lifting, Dr. Kwende. I'm doing the heavy lifting. Everyone does his or her heavy lifting. And before they know it, they wake up and all the stuff they wanted to accomplish is done. It's like, that wasn't that big. No, no, no. When you're in it, it feels overwhelming. Oh my God, I've got to figure out how I'm going to manage this and manage that. But you do. You keep your eye on the prize. Before you know it, you've achieved it all. Then you've got to create something else, a new imagining that you can struggle, but you can struggle knowing because you have all these successes behind you. It's not a big deal. It's just part of the journey to ensure the growth that you need in order to actualize or have manifest that vision, that beautiful, broad, exceptional vision. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for me, I you know struggled in life when I was a lot younger to excel, to do the best that I could. Because as a young person, growing up without a father, knowing my father directly, I kind of was a bit lost. And I know I've shared this before. But at some point, because my mom was like, okay, go to church, go to church, go to church. At some point, it dawned on me that there was a heavenly father that had the power to do everything else that I couldn't do. And that understanding totally changed how I look at life. My perspective was totally changed. And all that I knew was that if I did everything that I needed to do, the rest would be okay. Right? It doesn't have to be okay the way that I want, but I knew I was going to be fine. And that's kind of the perspective that I have right now still. In everything that I do, I try to do the best that I can because that's all I control. And it's always worked out. And I'm just saying, if you're listening to me right now, all you have to worry about is what you control. Right? Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about, the system. Just do the part that you can do the best way that you can. And if you have faith, God is going to do the rest. Some of you call it nature, whatever. But if you do your part all the way, guaranteed the right things are going to happen for you.
Absolutely. George shares, and thank you, George. And I appreciate you and Olive sharing and anyone else who wants to share it. You have to make a decision to think about something, make decision to put it in writing, and decision to make it happen. Making decisions is the foundation stone. You're so important. And when you make a decision, what are you doing? You're now saving time. And if you're working with teams of individuals, you're fostering respect. You're making certain that you prevent uncertainty and even some conflict. You're increasing productivity. Decisions allow for people to have something from which to operate. It motivates them towards it's something. It motivates you towards something. You've got to decide. And it really doesn't matter how you go about the decision-making process. I'll show this visual that you can find online. But there's a 5 steps process here. Someone else may have a 3-step process. Someone else may have a 10-step process. It really doesn't matter whether you you look at the different options you have. You investigate the pros and cons. You make the decision, then you evaluate the efficacy of that decision, not negating the decision, not saying, oh, I made a bad decision, but really understanding how far you've leveraged, you've progressed based upon the use of that decision. Then you make course corrections if you need to. You learn from that decision. Then you make the next decision. Before you know it, you're making decisions all day long. You're not even thinking about it. You've got teams of people and you grow. And before you know it, everyone knows you as that exceptional leader. Why? Because you're making decisions and you make them. And here's the powerful thing: those who make decisions, and I think I may have a quote about this, and maybe I don't. I thought I did, but essentially, and I can't remember. Maybe you can remember who came up with this. Someone I should remember says it's in Napoleon Hill, the book Think and Grow Rich, and in one of the after studying over 25,000 responses from leaders who talked about how they came to make decisions, and then observing and studying the 500 most exceptional, great folks on the planet in terms of their accomplishments, not only financial and otherwise. It's found that those who made decisions quickly and changed them slowly, if at all, were among those who were the most successful among those who were evaluated. These are the multimillionaires, the billionaires at the time, in our current dollars, people making a remarkable difference on the planet, approximately 500 individuals. Those who were less successful, in fact, who failed significantly and consistently, had hard time making decisions. And when they made decisions, they changed them quickly, right? The power of trusting yourself, having a perspective to begin with, which may take a while if you're so busy being driven by the media, driven by your employer, driven by, fill in the blank, friends, family members. It may take a while to find your perspective, but take the time. You so deserve it. And then when you understand that, your decision making will be even clearer. Right, Dr. Kwende?
Yeah. So making decisions precedes action. If you don't take action, nothing happens. Right. One of the tricks of being successful is to fail fast. Okay. So that means you have to make decision fast, act on it, fail, and then correct it, then do it again. We only have so much life to live. If you wait for too long to make decision, guess what? You don't have enough time to fail and get back. Like seriously, there's only so much time we have. If you are making decisions fast and working through it, then you have multiple iterations that if you don't make decisions, you're going to kind of have less time to try out what you're trying to do. And I'm just being logical about it, but that's the truth, right? So the people that make decisions faster get to try it out more. You really learn when you're doing, not when you're thinking about it, right? If you're doing more, you're going to learn more, and then you correct, you fail fast, and then you get up and you get going. So it's true. The people that make decisions faster have the chance to reiterate more, and that's how they get better, right? So also, not making a decision is a lack of faith. You can't predict exactly what is going to happen. So guess what? You have to just decide, take action, and that's an expression of faith, right? So people that have lack faith take too long to make. That's me saying it right now. If you lack faith, you take too long to make decisions. And there's a huge nation in the world called procrastination.
I love that. I love that. Yes, we say that. Yes, that's the largest nation in the world. Procrastination. Yes. And what is procrastination? It's just the opposite of decision.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I found the quote. I won't read the quote. That's in the complete classic text of Napoleon Hill. For those of you who have that particular Think and Grow Rich version, is on page 199, and it was an accurate analysis of over 25 men and women who experienced a failure. They disclosed that at the top of the list was lack of decision, inability to make quick decisions or to make a decision, and then those who failed to accumulate money, as they use that as one criteria, without exception, the habit of reaching a decision, if at all, very slowly and changing these decisions quickly and often was why they were that characterized them. Those who were not successful. They took a long time to make the decision, and then when they made it, they changed it, and they made change.
Actually, Dr. Webb, you know what's funny? It's when I first met my wife, it was at a wedding.
Uh-oh.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm just watching, and then I saw this beautiful lady across the dance floor. So I went and asked for a dance, and then I went and asked for a second dance, and we got chatting. And by the end of the night,
I know.
I already made the decision. I said, "You're gonna be my wife." She's like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "No, I didn't say like right now, but
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Uh-huh,
it took 2 years."
uh-huh. And it listen, you persisted. You took care of business. Yeah.
And when it came to taking full advantage of our business platform, right? Yes, it took me about 4 years to make the commitment, but once I did, I basically
All
quit
in.
my wife from her career. I quit mine within a month, and I focused on it. So when people ask me, how did you succeed? I made a decision and then I stuck with it. That's it. I didn't do anything different. That's what we're talking about right now. You make a decision and then you stick with it. You're going to have challenges in anything that you do. It doesn't matter what it is. But the willingness to stick with the same thing and just keep doing it, learning, falling and getting up, falling and get up. You fall down 9 times, you get up 10 times. That's it. If you can do that in anything, you're going to be successful.
And I'm going to really reference Stephen Covey, because, years ago, I loved his 7 habits of highly effective people. That includes being proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek first to understand, synergize, sharpen the saw. And really, as part of all of this, literally seek first to understand and then to be understood. But embedded in it, without being explicit, and the essence of Stephen Covey you find in Think and Grow Rich. You can just use one book and find what we're going to reference a number of books, but literally, you use Think and Grow Rich, you'll come across basically all the seminal information. But what I loved about him was the power of what we're talking about. Really engenders, grows. Supports and solidifies, reinforce the notion of the person being trustworthy to self, and having trust and being trusted by others. And in an organizational leadership capacity, having the capacity to facilitate others in being empowered through their own actions. And then organizational, helping an organization align itself effectively. But you've got to first have a perspective, and then you've got to be able to make decisions, let alone take action that should be consistent with that perspective and those decisions, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I recall listening to Ed Milet, and he said something consistently, which is that you have to keep the promises you make to yourself. That's where everything really starts, right? You have total control of the decisions that you make for you. Most of us fail in life because we don't even keep the promises we make to ourselves, right? Oh, we're going to wake up early in the morning, we're going to go to the gym, and then we don't do it. Why? Because we're supposed to be accountable to ourselves. And because there's nobody between me and me, guess what? I cannot show up and it's okay. That's the wrong way to do it. You have to be most accountable to you. I think the Bible says what I was talking to my wife this morning. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I know a lot of people misinterpret that. To me, that means you have to love you the most because you are the measure of love. Does that make sense? If I can't do for me, I can't do for others. I can't.
Exactly. There's no way you can project what you're not.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, powerful. I'm just going to highlight a couple of other people. Tomoko just highlighted the importance of what you conveyed earlier, putting in writing, really your decisions in writing. And then Judy shared, love all the points you have covered today. Thank you, Judy, for being here and leveraging them. And so I love this other statement. It's referenced, it's attributed to being in the Bible, and yet I don't know where it may be because I don't study the Bible enough to know that. You may know because I know you do studying. It's in a lot of seminal text with philosophical text, other religious texts. I'm assuming that it's probably in the Torah, it's probably in the Quran, it's probably a number of different texts I've read, dabbled a little bit, but not enough to know fully. And this is give a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you'll feed him for a lifetime. And embedded in what we talked about, and you began this, I believe, Dr. Kwende, is the power of leveraging other people who've been there, done it, have all the scars to show for it. So we don't have to go through the same thing. We leverage, we learn, we grow. And as we learn how to do it, we pass it on. So this notion of um, ensuring that people are best prepared for success so that the system is not just working, leveraging them, using them at their disadvantage, that they understand the system and the other aspects of it so they can leverage it and use it to their advantage and to the advantage of their families and more. So for whatever reason, that quote seems to fit us to a T. It's about helping people learn so that they can grow and they're prepared to be the success that they envision. What say you?
No, I totally agree. Part of what I have been trying to do right now with my kids, for example, is to set them up so that some parts of the system are not able to take advantage of them.
Mm,
So because I've learned about the financial space, I'm setting them up with the right accounts right now so that they don't have to worry about the financial aspects of the system. However, I expect them to do more in the other areas that don't have to do with the money. So when I talk to a lot of parents, they go like, well, my parents did not leave me anything. So guess what? I don't plan to leave anything for my kids. They have to suffer just like me. I'm like, are you seriously kidding me? Listen, I want my kids to not worry about getting money from the bank, but I want them to worry about building a skyscraper downtown because they're gonna have some worry anyway, right? So if I don't give my kids a stepping stone, that means my family is going backwards. So
mhm.
sometimes I get puzzled when I talk to parents. They go like, "Well, I don't want to spoil my kids." I'm like, "What do you mean spoil them?" I'm super hard on my kids. My kids play sports, all of them. You need to see me shouting on the field. You'll be like, "Sure." In fact, my son tells me that when he's playing soccer and I'm not there, he can hear me still shouting.
I that resonates with me. Mhm.
Because I want them to do the best. So I'm telling them, hey, when you go to the soccer field, for example, you don't have to win. That's not my goal. But you have to bring your best to the table. Right? It's not about
Yeah,
winning. That's not what I want you. I want you to put your
right.
best on the table. That's all I'm asking. If you win or lose, I don't really care. But I want you to bring your best. In life, that's what we should be doing. Right?
Mhm.
When we bring our best, then guess what? The rest is going to be okay.
And,
So
and
I love the fact that I have mentors that have shown me how to do what we do so that I can go show others, right? That's how it works. But I don't have to go through all the learning steps of the business because I have people that show me how to skip the steps that I don't need to go through. When I learn better, I have people on my team right now that do way better than me. Why? Because I'm assuming that I've done a great job of helping them jump through some of the hoops. So I expect them to do better than me. And for those that are in the business before me, I consider that I stand on their shoulders. That's why I expect to do better.
well, I know some of the stories. I know that you're living by example. And there are people who you brought on board, and they've well outperformed you in numbers. Uh, and and that's what we want. We want people to reach more individuals, more families, more businesses, and knock it out the park. Use that metaphor over and over and over again. And we want you, those who are viewing, to do the same thing. We want you to understand that you have capacity that far exceeds what you can imagine. And yeah, some of you may be comfortable and you want to stay comfortable. You have that right. That's the power that you have as human to choose. We're encouraging you, we're hopefully inspiring you to get out of your comfort zone and take a little bit of risk and then increase the level of risk, because that's directly correlated, highly correlated with the level of success. I firmly believe, and I've never asked Dr. Kwende, I believe he believes that at the core of each one of us is greatness. We get to peel away all the stuff, the socialization, all the noise, and get to that greatness. That requires work. And if you're willing to get in, to be all in, Dr. Quindy and I will be willing to help you. So feel free to reach out to us. Uh, you can find us on LinkedIn. You can also find us here. Lead Live is here every week, and Dr. Quindy and I once a month. Most importantly, choose how you live. Make the right decisions that work for you and those you love. And ideally, the rest of us will benefit. Take the actions. You don't need to know the how. Wow. If you know the how, maybe that's not what you should be pursuing. Go somewhere you've never gone before. Leverage, leverage, leverage the experts. And in my head, I have Jerry saying, I came up with that leverage. Olive's made. Beautiful, man. I just want you to understand your capacity is exactly what you choose for it to be. We were not born of greatness not to experience it. We were born of greatness. We're part of greatness, and we return to greatness because. Take advantage of it. You want to end with anything, Dr.
Yeah,
Brilliant?
no, thank you so very much. I just want to say that the God that I serve is an extraordinary God. He didn't make anything ordinary, right? He made every one of us extraordinary. But the challenge is what? Because of his love for each one of us, he cannot force us to do anything. I remember the Bible says, Jesus says, Behold, I stand at the door and knock. He can put the door down anytime he wants just by speaking it. But he says, I stand at the door and knock, and whoever opens the door, I'm going to come in and be with him.
Mm.
Right? So, yes, our Heavenly Father has the power to do anything he chooses to do. But guess what? Because of the love that he has, he cannot open the door for you and I. We have to open that door. You have to take the steps. You have to take the action. You have to make a conscious decision for things to happen to you. Right? So I just want to challenge you, if you're listening right now, nothing is going to happen to your life the way you want just by you just waiting. You have to consciously take some action. Right? Yes. Is it always going to be perfect? Absolutely not. That's not even expected. But you do your part the best way that you can. Guess what? The rest is going to happen for you. I'm super excited to be able to share some of my thoughts with Dr. Webb. Dr. Webb, seriously, I appreciate you so much for everything that you do, right? And putting together this platform that I believe has and is changing lives, has the potential of changing lives right now. I couldn't appreciate it more. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
It's my honor, and that's the essence of who you are, who your wife is. I have no doubt. And we are so fortunate to be among a team of people who are all about faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun. That's the wealth equation, folks. We hope that you walk away with not only being inspired, but some nuggets that you can use right away. And thank you again, Judy. She writes the ability to make decisions quickly and change them slowly. And Herbert writes, do all you can with your children. He is so on. They will have their own struggles, but don't be one of them. Hit the nail on the head. Folks, enjoy, experience the beauty that you are part of. We wish you well and look forward to seeing you. Leverage, go forth, be your best. Experience your greatness. Why don't?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kwende, always.